Hey guys, welcome to Thrive Bites Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for listening on. You could have been anywhere in the world and you decided to spend just a few moments of your precious time, and we greatly appreciate it. Here on the podcast, we talk about three things: living a plant-powered lifestyle, enhancing emotional resilience, and creating a thriving mindset. And I interview a range of passionate guests such as physicians, dietitians, coaches, entrepreneurs, and many more. And please join me as I deliver these engaging, informative, and high-valued conversations for you. And just remember, the first 5 seasons of the Thrive Bites podcast can now be found in the Chef Doc app, available in your Apple Store and Google Play stores. So what are you waiting for? Come on inside. Hey guys, if you enjoy this, don't forget to check back to our part 1. So with that in mind, we're going to segue into the demo. What are we going to be cooking and preparing for today?
All right. So yes, we're going to make so this comes from my ideas or my experience with a broccoli salad from Lancaster. So Lancaster is, county not too far from Philadelphia, and there's a large portion of Mennonites that live there, and they have this broccoli salad that I think is amazing. Traditionally broccoli, it's got some bacon, it's got some creamy mayo, sweet dressing, and raisins. So I was doing this for our Philadelphia audience, and we're translating this to a whole food plant-based version. So we're going to obviously use more plants and less of the processed stuff. One of the things I really like to talk about when we talk about dressings is, especially if you want to make a dressing or a sauce that's creamy, you got to pick a base. All right. So a lot of times we either use beans or nuts or seeds. I really like to use tofu, which is what we're going to use today. You can even use oats. Sometimes I toast up some oats and blend that in, make it nice and creamy. But I really like tofu and introducing people to the use of tofu because it is made from soybeans. And there's so many great health benefits from soybeans, including all this research on helping with menopausal symptoms, protecting against prostate and breast cancer. And one of my other favorite topics is soy. When you ferment it and you make soy sauce, actually one of the compounds in there are ACE inhibitors. So if you ever remember lisinopril, it's a blood pressure medication. Guess what? You can get that in soy sauce. So that's also a fun intersection between food and food science and health, right? The other thing that I really like to mention is that broccoli is a cruciferous vegetable. So broccoli is in the same family as cauliflower, and then all the leafy parts like kale, Brussels sprouts, or even lettuce. These have high amounts of sulforaphane, and sulforaphane is an amazing compound that's antioxidant, antimicrobial, anti-diabetic, anti-cancer, all these healthy things that can help with blood pressure and all those other diseases that we talked about. But how do we get to optimize sulforaphane? Well, you take your cruciferous vegetable and you break the cells, right? You cut it, you chop it, you eat it, you chew it. And what happens is you release an enzyme called myrosinase that works on a compound called gluforophanin. And those together form sulforaphane. So the recommendation is to cut it about 90 minutes before you're going to use it, because the moment that you heat it, you inactivate that enzyme myrosinase, and then you've kind of stopped that process. Now, sometimes you don't have 90 minutes to wait after cutting it. The brilliant thing is you can use something like mustard. Mustard has myrosinase in it. This is a raw salad, so I cut it ahead of time just so you can see that it can be done. And, you want to chill it and things like that. Yeah. So how do we break down a broccoli? Well, you take the right tool for the right job and you take off the florets.
Thanks, Dad.
Exactly. So you take off the florets and you get it to whatever bite size that you like. But then you're left with the stalk, right? Also very nutritious. There's this area down here that's a little bit dry, so I usually take off some of this more fibrous part on the outside. Oh, couple safety tips I should mention. This hat and this apron is from a good friend of mine, Chef Char Nolan, and she'd be very happy if I mentioned this. So put a
Plug
towel underneath your cutting board so it doesn't move around, right? Safety first. So this part,
and what does Daniel, what does it say on your apron and hat in case people can't read it?
it says more plants, less meat. Eat
Nice.
more greens.
I love it.
Yeah, as a gift from her. So this part, nice and tender. You can just chop it up and add it to your salad. Works really well. And then I think, Colin, you're a big fan of making sure people get good knife skill training, right? Claw technique.
Mm-hmm.
So that knife never goes to a place where it might chop or cut your finger.
Yes.
All right. This stuff can go into a nice stock, vegetable stock, or even compost if you're going to compost. Gordon Ramsay makes a really good broccoli soup, and he will make a comment that broccoli soup should not have chicken stock. It should have broccoli. So make your broccoli stock for broccoli soup. All right, great. So we have that broccoli there. All right, so let's make this dressing. So like I said, we're going to do tofu as the base, and we're going to put it in our blender. All right, so we have our tofu, and this is extra firm tofu. You can use any tofu you want. Even extra firm will get smooth and creamy, doesn't matter. And then you have scallions. This is 5 stalks of scallions in here for that freshness. And then we have dates. Dates are one of my favorite fruit to use for sweetening. Here we have medjool, and I ran out of medjool, so there's some deglets too. But using fruit to sweeten is a fantastic way to get more nutrients along with the sweetness, right? Because you're not just getting the extracted, refined sugar part out of it. It's coming with the fiber and the water and all the vitamins and nutrients and minerals that come in there.
And what's interesting is that people commonly think the highest potassium sources are bananas, when in actuality, it's actually dates, which is actually really, really interesting to learn. Dr. Chen, in terms of your tofu, for someone that doesn't use tofu as much, where can they source it? Do they have to go to an Asian market?
They don't. I found it more and more often in other supermarkets. Our kind of affordable local market in Philadelphia is called Aldi's, and they even started carrying it as well. And it's usually kind of in the meat section. But I think Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, they all have tofu as well.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
But if you do have access to an Asian market, you can get like these giant ones, giant containers for really cheap.
And all the varieties.
yes. So you can get your options there. So we have some garlic, which we'll toss in there. And we have some lemon juice and lemon zest. This is just 1 lemon. And I often like to say, we might not be using refined oils or excess, like extra fats, but some of the reason you get such beautiful smells from zest is because of those oils, right? That's where that flavor comes in. Oops. So there we go. We'll put that in there. We also have some Dijon mustard, and then this is vinegar. But this is actually a little bit of a special vinegar. This is a mango vinegar that I've made. So I was talking to a chef friend of mine not too long ago, and he was saying, he makes his own flavored vinegars. I was like, what? How does that work? I thought you have to buy this all. And he's like, no, you can do all kinds of fruits, and you can make your vinegars, have those essences of those fruits. So I was like, another opportunity to avoid food waste. So we have mangoes during this season, and usually you cut out the cheeks and then you have the pit, right? And then I would usually kind of suck on it and then compost it. But I avoided sucking on it this time. I put it in a jar and I filled it up with just white vinegar. And 2 weeks later, I wish you could smell this, Colin, I do this with my patients, and they love it. If you smell this, it smells just like mangoes and vinegar.
It's just a pit. It's just a pit and
just
vinegar.
the pit. Yep.
What kind of vinegar?
White vinegar. Yeah.
Okay.
Just a white vinegar, regular vinegar. And, there's sugars on that residual flesh around the pit. You don't have to add any added sugar. So that's all it is. It's vinegar and the fruit. And my patients are all about this. And they even suggested using other fruit, maybe using the core of a pineapple. Sometimes people don't eat that core because of how it feels in your mouth, right? But yet it's still good for something like this. Or even if you blend the core into a sauce or a dressing, works just fine. So yes, and then so we have the Dijon and the vinegar in here. Thought I had a spoon, but let me grab one.
Dr. Chen, why is it important to avoid food waste?
Oh, well, one, your hard-earned money goes to getting this stuff, and you want to maximize that, right? Second, all of this food is good for something, right? Whether it's going back into creating compost to feed your garden, all the nutrients that come from your foods, your fruits and vegetables come from that soil, right? We talk a lot about the calcium maybe that you might think you're getting from cow's milk, for example, right? Where did that calcium come from? Well, the cows ate plants that gave them calcium.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, one of my mentors, Dr. Anna Negron, likes to talk about how, what's the point of cow's milk? Well, it's to get a baby cow to grow hundreds and hundreds of pounds really, really fast, right? And that's not what we want for our human babies. And there are studies that show that kids on a plant-based diet may be smaller than people not on a plant-based diet. However, as adults, they grow to the same size. So is there a real benefit to growing our kids really fast? Not sure. But the other part that she likes to talk about is, why do we drink one animal's milk but not rat milk? I think the answer, it's really hard to get enough milk out of a rat. But
you need a lot of rats.
Yeah. So nutritional yeast, right? To get some umami in there. And, most of the time nutritional yeast is fortified. You can take a few more vitamins there. And then to replace the bacon idea in the original iteration of this recipe, I used some smoked paprika. Okay. And those are all the ingredients. Oh yeah, no food waste. We're going to get all of it.
For those of us who have never used nutritional yeast, what does it taste like?
Oh, some people call it a little bit cheesy. I think it does give a layer of mouthfeel, right? That umami. So I like to use it anytime I want to add a layer of depth to flavor. Like even when I've made a ramen seasoning mixture, right? So I'll often use nutritional yeast, white pepper, a little bit of garlic powder. Onion powder is really essential, I think, to creating that familiar ramen feel. And then sometimes I use some kind of red chili and then soy sauce. And it works really well. All right. So I'll get this on, and maybe we'll mute in just a moment so we don't get bombarded with our hearing. And I have about a cup of water here that I'm going to use, but I probably won't use all of it. Just adjust. If I've learned anything from my chef's friends, you got to adapt and adjust and taste as you go. All right. So let's get some of that water in there. Otherwise, it won't blend very well. All right. Here we go. All right. And there you have it.
Nice.
You all can see this. And, blending with beans or with tofu, which is made from a bean, sometimes things can get a little grainy. Okay, if that happens, here you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice and creamy, right?
Yeah.
It can get a little grainy, and if that happens, just add a little more liquid. And sometimes I learned this from making hummus. Using ice, right, can help smooth things out as well. Because when you blend ice, you create basically kind of like little shards of glass, which is not glass, melts away, helps make things a little bit smoother and creamier. Cool. So this is our dressing. So let's assemble our salad. Oh, good.
So for those that are listening by audio, what is the texture that we want to strive for? Like super, super thick, semi-thick, a little bit runny, or is it per person's taste?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's up to your preference. When we're cooking with plants, I feel like learning how to get textures to the place that you want is really helpful. A lot of how we experience food is textural. And a lot of patients that I've worked with who don't like a certain food, for example, mushrooms, it's often textural that they're working. So maybe we create them into some kind of almost ground meat type thing, where you put mushrooms in, you cook them down, concentrate them, chop them up, and then add it to something like walnuts or tofu crumble or lentils, right? And then, or even make a pate, right? Cook those mushrooms down again and then blend them until they're smooth. I think that makes a big difference. For this particular recipe, I like a very creamy sauce. So you want it, I think sometimes people talk about, oh, will it coat the back of a spoon? You would know a little bit better than I would about that kind of qualification, but it'll coat the back of the spoon. And you can change things up a little bit. I call this almost a mayo type sauce. If you wanted to back off a little bit on the smoked paprika, it would be very close to a mayo type flavor as well. Because traditionally mayo is oil, Dijon, and egg, right? So we have that kind of consistency here. If I want it a little bit thicker, I use it to dip like French fries. I just put sliced or French potato sticks, maybe. I put them in the oven, and they are basically my French fries, and I dip them into the sauce. So
awesome.
All right, so let's assemble. So we have our chopped broccoli. Put that in there. And if you don't like raw broccoli, either texture or flavor, give it a quick blanch, 1 minute or so. You can retain that nice green color, and you get a little bit of that cooked out. And then we have some cooked farro. All right. So I prepared all this the day before, left it in the fridge. And it's a good opportunity to talk about resistant starch. And the short chain fatty acids that get formed from resistant starch by bacteria in your gut. And the benefits of this are huge. There's so many health benefits related to creating this resistant starch and feeding your gut bacteria with it. And so all you got, that's the benefit of batch cooking, right? And preparing ahead of time is that you just pull all these ingredients out that are already cooked and ready, sitting in your fridge, and you can enjoy them anytime. And you also have less sugar spikes in their blood for those who might be concerned about that. And you can feed your gut microbiome. And you don't have to worry about reheating. The resistant starch is already formed. Reheating doesn't destroy them or remove them. So we have our farro in there. We also have some chopped carrots or diced carrots. Get that in there. We have some sweet onion, also diced. And we have some diced apple. Oh, here are the stems of the broccoli. So we'll get that in there. And then we have sweet potato. All right. You can put anything you like, really, but that's what we're putting in today. Oh, I forgot one thing. When I make salads, normally I recommend people dress the bowl. Have you ever heard of this concept, Colin? Or is this something that goes around in your circles?
Dress the bowl.
So we put the dressing on the bowl before we add all the ingredients. because
Ah.
because it allows for an easier mix, I think.
Mhm.
It's something that I've kind of noticed and usually enjoy doing. I forgot to do it today, but because if you just put the dressing on top, you're like constantly trying to get everything on
Yeah,
top and then
yeah.
mix back down to the bottom. But you can still do it, no problem. I should mention that this dressing, this recipe makes about a little more than a quart of dressing. And I plugged it into a nutrition calculator thing not too long ago. And each 2 tablespoon serving has more than 5 grams of fiber and 7 grams of protein. So if
Mhm.
people are thinking about those things, and that's part of somebody's goal, feel good about
How
this.
how many grams of fiber do we need, Dr. Chen, per day?
Well, I mean, there's probably if we get to 40 to 50 grams, that's probably more of an ideal number. The average American gets about 10. So if we get higher, I mean, there are certain groups, organizations that recommend somewhere around 25, but you see some really amazing benefits when you get up to 40
Mhm.
or 50 grams per day. And the
Mhm.
benefits include decreasing blood pressure, decreasing cholesterol,
So
decreasing
much.
cancer, diabetes, all kinds of.
Regulating your weight, so much. I usually
Yeah,
recommend 40 plus as
yeah,
well, and it's same consensus. Usually average Americans like 15 or less.
yeah. So there's our salad. And you can put as much dressing or as little dressing as you want. This is best if you chill it.
Mm.
But yep, that
Honestly, you just put that into a package, right? You seal it up. You put it on the shelves of Whole Foods, right? You won't even be able to tell the difference that Dr. Daniel Chen made it.
yeah, and completely, I mean, I think it's fairly accessible. I think most people wouldn't feel too intimidated to make something like this.
No, no.
Yeah,
I think it's like you said, accessible, easy to make. You've tasted it. So you're bridging so many connecting points, right? You're bridging so many different things and reducing as many barriers and reducing as many walls as possible. Because what telling people to eat better and move more doesn't do is it just doesn't connect, it doesn't bridge the gap. And so what you have done is bridge all the different gaps where at the end of the day, a patient's like, I don't really have anything else besides me. Like, what's stopping me is me from achieving this, right? Because you literally demonstrated everything from point A to point B. So that was a beautiful presentation. Can it be eaten by itself as a side dish, or how would you?
I mean, so the other thing that I really like to talk about is the ACLM's, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine's plate graphic. And I don't know if you can link this or toss it up to people, but this graphic shows 50% of the plate fruits and vegetables, quarter of the plate plant protein, and quarter of the plate whole grains. And then they always remind you got to make it taste good, right? Herbs and spices. So this actually has all of those components, right? We have our whole grain in the farro. We have our fruits and vegetables in the, well, vegetables are obviously there. Don't forget that the dates are your fruits there, right? And then you have your plant protein in the form of, well, everything has protein, but maybe we'll point out the tofu as the part that
Mhm.
we're focused on in that regard. So it's a beautiful and nutritious, sustaining meal.
I
You can
love it.
always use it as a side. Makes a great potluck dish,
Mhm.
especially in the hot weather of summer. It's a nice salad you can just bring along.
Mhm. And we'll make sure we'll get the recipe from Dr. Chen so we can make it at home. Thank you so much for your time, your effort, your practice, the way you exude and express yourself. I think this is also something that a lot of people don't know is that, there's an art to medicine. We concentrate a lot on the science of medicine, but the art form of this is where I feel this is one of the best ways to be able to express ourselves. So we don't just, are seen as just robots typing in front of a computer, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. It's about the connection, right? It's about helping with systemic changes, but in the context of the individual and helping meet those unique situations to help people gain that freedom so that we do have collective liberation, right? As a society, as a people,
Of
so that we
course.
can reclaim our health.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. If people wanted to see you, socials or see you in practice, how can they reach you?
I work at Esperanza Health Center, in North Philadelphia. My Instagram is Dan Lo Chen. That's just my name. If you want to follow along, it's just a collection of my life and what I'm exploring in terms of food and life in general. But if you'd like to tag along, please find me, and that you can message me there too as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here on the show. Thank you for a wonderful presentation, and keep up the good work and continue to keep cooking and teaching others to cook. And we really appreciate your time for today.
Thank you, Colin. It was a pleasure. We had fun, right?
Yes, yes. For more to come. So, guys, if you like this and enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you feel that this was a benefit for someone else, please let them know. And until then, please say goodbye to Dr. Chen. So long.
All the best.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoy that episode. If you like that, please like, comment, and subscribe. And please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. And if you felt that this was a benefit for someone else, please let them know. And also remember that the first 5 seasons, 150 episodes, now can be seen and heard on our new The Chef Doc app. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating, and we greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one.